I heard as a red thread from all the panelists that we should coordinate better, that we should cooperate better, that we should network better, that we should communicate and translate better. So the question is, how can we do this? I remember in my report we were mentioning a task force, you were mentioning an agency. So the very simple question is to all of you, do we need a new institution to gather all of you, all over Europe, to gather all the knowledge, to gather data, to gather strategies also how to bring over our results? So, Judith.
Well, I think I can be very short because I made the case when I was speaking, but we see this as really a gap at the moment in the policy framework. So increasingly we have a more assertive European raw materials strategy. We have the European Raw Materials Alliance, the ERMA, of which we are a member organisation, and many companies and our employer counterparts are members. But we don't see all of the links being tied together yet at European level. And our idea, and this was also in discussion within the Economic and Social Committee, where a report was developed relatively early on in response to the European raw materials strategy. The report was started before the strategy was actually launched, so it ran in parallel to the development of the strategy, and there was a very big discussion between employers, workers' representatives, civil society, groups within the Economic and Social Committee about this idea of whether there needed to be new institutions. There wasn't a conclusion, as far as I'm aware, in the report on that, so it's still a moot point, but we certainly as trade union see a gap which we feel could be filled by a European Geological Survey Agency, and we took our inspiration in some ways from the US. And you're the experts, you can give us a view whether that's a good example to use or not. Is it comparable? Is it just completely out of the water? But we were looking for how we can strengthen the exchange of knowledge, how we can bring things together much more coherently and comprehensively at European level to ensure that we have the benefits of our common research, our common expertise across Europe. So we're on board for that, but willing to talk about the details.
Yeah, I have to say very honestly that my group and I myself, I'm not a huge fan of founding new institutions, but if I think about duplication maybe, that we double work, that we are not efficient enough, this might be a factor which we could consider, which might be in favor of funding an institution. I have another issue, which is also to raise the awareness, to bring it to the public awareness much better, this issue of raw materials, and also to the younger generation. I used to be the spokesperson for education in the previous parliament I was serving, and I realized that, I don't know how it is in your field. Are there many young geologists? We have two here, I'm very glad to see them, but what I hear that we are lack the next generation of geologists, and in this crucial moment when we need them so much. And maybe this kind of institution could also help to raise a little bit, you know, the awareness and also the importance of the issue. But what is your view on this issue? And I saw also somebody was already raising her hand, two people were raising their hand, so I will bring you in after Marco.
Yes, in general, I agree. It seems to me that the main effort can be about coordination of activity. And I don't think we need another institution, but perhaps the current institutions can be more effective in finding this kind of agreement and developing, as was mentioned before, about the avoid duplication of data and powerful and long existing databases and infrastructure to be available in the future and right now. About the need to communicate to the general public, I didn't mention that in Paris, in the beginning of December, that we will, the IEH will manage one of the main session, the main session related to innovation. And we identified 4 types of innovation, 4 kinds of innovation. The technological one, of course, but educational innovation is another important thing. Conceptual innovation, which is related to the transfer of knowledge and to be reinforced, and societal and citizen community communication innovation, because in this case, especially for a developing country, we found that, of course, social media like we use here in Europe can be not so effective. So we developed, for example, some good experience for raising the awareness and inform the citizen, the farmers and so on in a developing country by radio programs. For example, radio programs can be a good media for reaching people that have no big possibility to be reached in other way. So don't forget that we have a lot of possibility to inform the people. We have only to translate our information in a public awareness.
Absolutely. Then I would like to bring in, we have you. Do you have a micro? Okay, please.
Yeah, am I on online? Yeah, fine. Yeah, I would like to comment on Judith as acting president of EuroGeoSurveys. It's about creating new institutions. I'm also director of the German Federal Geological Survey, so I run an institution with 800 staff members and a 3-digit million euro annual budget. And it's fun to have an institution. The question is it necessary to expand the jungle of institutions? We have this discussion for more than 10 years in our community among the 37 geological survey organizations of the European member states and associated ones. And we decided for a completely different approach. In 2014, we committed ourselves to a geological service for Europe because we are convinced that everything we need is on the table. It has to be interconnected. We have not to create new value, we have to create added value by interconnecting the existing resources. And this is a challenge. This is not a simple game because we have our diversity within Europe, different schools, different languages, different geological record schemes, but we are on the way to unite it, we are on the way to harmonize and standardize it. And this is proven by the European Commission. In January 2022, we completed the first joint project with the spirit of a service, the GeoEra project, and we have the follow-up, the coordinated and support action, which is called literally the Geological Service for Europe, and it's successful. So we feel that we are on the right track, and we feel that we are laying the basis for coping with the future challenges on the table.
There's another voice.
Yes, thank you, Ralph. You couldn't have said it better. But if you want to organize things, I think it's important to realize that for the challenges we face, it's not raw materials itself. It's the holistic approach on the subsurface. And we are talking about geology all the time, but it's energy, it's all sorts of energy-related topics, environmental-related topics, and raw materials. So all together makes the information you need. And I would urge you to look at the legislation, European legislation, and if my wish for the Geological Survey for Europe, that after we are 5 years ahead now, that it will be transferred in European legislation, where we can provide the data on a permanent basis instead of in a project basis. And I think that's for the future of Europe very important.
there's one more. Yeah.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Manuel Regueiro. I work for the National Research Council in Spain, but I used to be the president of the European Federation of Geologists, and you posed this question about, do we have enough geologists around the world? Well, the answer is very clear, no, we don't have. All these plans that you are having here will be supported by, people in the end, and there are not enough geologists. I wonder if a new institution will make the space for more contracts, let's say. But if you ask me, I would support the creation of, because I think, as has been said, this is geology is an holistic, you need an holistic view of things, because we're talking about hazards, water, mineral resources, maps, the geology itself. It's a compendium of things. Geology is a very extended sort of science, and you need experts. And this is difficult to create. And for example, in many schools in Spain, and high school in the university, there's not a lot of training about, for some geological mapping, which is something that is very needed these days, no? And so what I would suggest is to look at this problem of staffing in the coming future, because all these plans need these people. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, we have one more voice here. It's a lady. Oh, there's more. Okay, there's much more. You see better maybe down there. There are two hands. There are more. 3 hands down there. In this corner. Yeah. So I think I touched upon a very interesting question by accident. Okay.
Move around a bit.
Sorry, I think I shortcut everybody being behind, and I just want to follow what is being just said. And globally, I think education is the biggest problem. So what we see is United Kingdom, France, and many countries, geological departments are closing. In Australia, I know it, there's 4 universities were closing. So the lady who presented us, Heather Hanley, Earth Features Film Festival, the reason we organized this film festival is we are seeing a big trend that we are not producing geologists. So I think most of us here above certain age with education and master and PhD, but outside the problems we are discussing here, there is no supply. So in UK, I know most closed. In Australia, big ones closed, and Australia is a mining country. We know the issues. So I think the issue is here. I mean, I'm not an expert, and I don't work for Geological Survey, but I am a UNESCO staff, and my priority is making sure that we still have geologists in the future. And another point is the geologists at the schools, what is being studied today is exactly what I studied 30 years ago. So one of the points is what we are discussing here as advanced issues, they are not reflected at the universities. So we still study petrography, we still study paleontology, read the essentials of the geology, but I don't know how many universities are teaching what we discussed all today. And this should be brought to really earlier levels, not only masters and PhD and only European Commission level. So I think as a duty, geological surveys are national organizations, they have their mandate and others. So I think there is also the collaboration from European point, as you nicely presented. We need to make this connection that all we discuss here just doesn't stay with us because we are aware, and the people who will change the future are actually not us. So I think if you could help me and help any educational organizations to get that apply connected, I'll be really happy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I see 2 more hands, and then I would like to wrap up, but it's very interesting, and I would also bring in another aspect which very comes across my work, or it is the public acceptance of mining. And I see a huge task out there which cannot only go with me as a politician. I'm very willing to accept this task. But I think we have to educate mayors, local politicians, politicians on all levels, and the population about some very basics about our industry policy. And this is very much needed. So I fully understand that this is a service which collects data and presents data to decision makers. This is very valuable and very important part. But I think we have more tasks at the moment for this kind of institution, which we have to tackle. But we will collect further. Okay.
Sorry, I just wanted to respond to that. One of the work packages in the GSEU program is about communication, dissemination and exploitation. And I'm a communicator. I'm not actually a geologist. I am a communicator. So we're going to be working really, really hard to look at all of the stakeholders. And that's not just about policy. Some of that will be around education. And some of that will be around making geology accessible to people who perhaps don't really understand how relevant it is. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Another intervention?
Okay. Yes.
Two more? Three more?
Sorry.
Okay, we'll continue on this. I mean, if it's of interest to everybody, then we.
So I wanted to say that I fully support everything that has been said by our president and by my own director. You were asking about the need for an institution. I don't think we necessarily need a large institution, and I fully agree that we have shown that we are on the way and working very hard. But requiring the kind of data and information and knowledge, bringing that together in the long run is a big effort. And that is an effort that requires people, requires funding, requires a mandate also from our national governments to contribute this, because we are funded by national governments for national purposes, not necessarily for European ones. And that setting up such a framework cannot rely on projects. It needs to rely on continuity. And I think that's also one of the things that we are addressing in the GSEU project, but that finding that framework should be a key outcome of the project, and that's what it's all about.
Thank you very much. One more intervention, two more, and then we wrap up.
Yeah, I know.
Ladies first, okay.
Thank you.
You're not forgotten. You're not forgotten.
I think I will talk from another, how can I say, perspective. As a lecturer, I think at universities there is a huge human power, and the geological surveys, they have to use that human power for research, collecting data, and also for to sensitize the population. From an African, what I know very well how it works, Africa, I worked also with some geological surveys from Europe. The geological surveys, they are working by themselves. They are not really interacting with the universities. And they think instead of creating a new organization, it's very important to find a way how to work with the researchers from the universities and from the institutions, maybe through projects, and also how to work also with the civil society. It's very important. Why the geological surveys are important in that environment? Because they are representing also the government. So they are governmental bodies. They have a power. I don't know if you understand what I mean. I think it's to create the link between the geological surveys, universities, through the research, supervising or co-supervising students, through projects, and also to work with the civil society. Otherwise, you have to create a new body that create the link between all these institutions and also with the policymakers.
So. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's a new aspect also, I think. Yeah, please, one more intervention. Yeah, two more. Okay. That's the gentleman but he was really before.
Thank you. Actually, yeah, it's a comment on whether we need other institutions or not. First, I think I will not rule it out, but I think what others have said, we need to improve the collaboration between the existing ones. And I'm very happy that you, during the past 2 days, we heard a lot about minerals and critical minerals, and that is, of course, very important now for the green transition. But don't forget about water and energy also. That I'm very happy that actually Marco mentioned the water, energy, food ecosystem nexus, and maybe we should include minerals in that nexus and improve the collaboration between the different organizations that work on these. And Marco and I, we have both worked on that in the working group groundwater within the Common Implementation Strategy for the Water Framework Directive, and we had talked about that for 10 years. It's not easy, it's very difficult to actually, and you can have a lot of good intentions, but finally in the end you need some common projects to collaborate on to improve this. And especially related to water, what is important for us is to get a much better understanding about how groundwater, the hydrological cycle, and the ecosystems work together. And some people consider biodiversity loss as important as climate change, and the water issues are very closely related to the biodiversity globally. So yeah, I think that's a comment from my side.
Thank you very much. Then we take one more intervention, and then I would like to bring it back to the podium.
Okay, so the new one can end the day. Thank you so much. But I hear you saying in the past few minutes is that we have this problem by engaging a next generation to be a geologist or to work for earth science, and that it is so hard to reach them, and that it's so hard because it all starts with education, and we need to change that, and it is hard. But actually, for my generation, it all starts on social media, people. So and it is really easy, and I would like to help you all out by just, if you are doing your fieldwork, just make a nice snapshot or make a small TikTok video if you hold a new specimen in your hand and post it, because if we would flood social media, I think that is a really powerful tool, actually. So yeah, that is, I can say more, but let's go to the drinks.
Colleague, because you received the prize.
Very shortly. I just wanted to really say that's completely true, because we at our department at Ghent University, we started an Instagram, a Facebook, something else, I guess, and we doubled our amount of students. At the same time, we also have new course on geohazard, so we're renewing our courses, and I think like social media will help geology students come in. Thank you.
No, I think I would underline this also. We have quite some examples in Germany for science communication done by young people who really explain perfectly, and that was very important during the pandemic, because people all of a sudden met science very in reality. So they did a great job, and I can really just, maybe that's a way out, you know, that we just motivate more people to talk about what they are doing online and communicate better. But I thank you. That was a very complex discussion, and I have to say it was also important for me as a lawmaker, since we are about to write this Raw Materials Act, and there is really the question of governance, coordination, monitoring, and so on. So that's a real question, how we build up ourselves in terms of institutions and what kind of tasks we have to fulfill. So thank you very much for your insights. I mean, I would have another question, but I think we are slowly running out of time. But maybe just, I mean, we have talked the interconnection between the public and society and science, but what about science and industry? So, I mean, this sharing of information, is this kind of a natural thing, or do you bump into business secrets very often? So how can we imagine as policymakers, is this a smooth cooperation, or do we also need another set of networks, of communication, of alliances also, because we very often found alliances between industry and politics, but I don't know how it is about science and industry. Maybe Judith, a word on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk about that as well, but can I say one word on the skills? Because this for us is one of the biggest challenges that we face. We have enormous skill shortages right across Europe, across all technical and industrial skill sets. If we look at the average age in our industries, it's extremely worrying in terms of whole sections of engineering, academic skills, but also blue-collar skills, semi-skilled work professions as well. So I think your point about communication is absolutely spot on, because we have a generation of young people coming through school who are extremely conscious of the climate crisis and looking for ways that they can contribute to addressing the climate crisis. And in some ways, we need the professions like geologists, like certain parts of the engineering industries, and so on, to be connecting up to show people the career paths and to show people the possibilities of what these careers can lead to in relation to the challenges that we face as society. And I think in that way you excite young people, and we have to. That's a challenge also in the trade union movement. I mean, we all have our own challenges to deal with, but we have to excite young people about the things which are going on to get them fully engaged in the process. So I think communications, whether it's social media or whatever, I'd love to see all of you guys on TikTok by tomorrow. That would be great. I'm sure by the end of your dinner tonight there'll be quite some videos that would be possible. But I think it's really, this is actually for us the Achilles heel of the Green Deal. We will not be able to deliver the Green Deal by 2030, and certainly not the objectives by 2050, if we don't address the labour shortages that we face, because the ageing workforce in key sectors and professions is really a critical issue for the European economy. Then in terms of the connection between industry and science, there it's also maybe about joining up some of the dots. There is a lot of industrial coordination around some of these challenges. We see within the European Raw Materials Alliance the development of industrial cooperation, enormous amounts of projects being developed in a pre-competitive way. It's likely that we will have important projects of common European interest launched in terms of raw materials, and it's a question about how all of the actors within this broad ecosystem actually lock in to bring their expertise into the development of those projects. So I think I realise I put the cat amongst the pigeons by saying that in our discussion we've seen a gap. That may be because from outside your world we don't see the massive amount of effort that you've been doing over the last few years to coordinate yourselves. So I'm sorry if I've come as an external speaker saying this is what we think we need, and you say, well, we've already had that conversation and decided that we don't. But that's a question of communication with the wider public. We represent workers across Europe who have raised this as a key gap from their experience of organising raw materials work at the national level and in European projects. So take it as a constructive proposal and an offer for an engagement in dialogue. We don't want to duplicate things that already exist. We don't want to create unnecessary structures which don't lead us anywhere. But what we do want to do is we want to turbocharge a whole European industrial policy agenda. And we see the scientific foundation of that industrial policy agenda is absolutely crucial to get us where we need to go to. So our door is open and we would love to keep going on the conversation.
Okay, I think we have extended our time. Okay. You're the panelist. You have, of course, the right to.
Yeah, no, just 1 minute to underline that in my opinion, big program like your Horizon Europe or Horizon 2020 offer real and concrete possibility to join the effort from the academic world with the geological surveys, with the SME and the startup initiative and industry in my field, for example, water utilities and other industry related to water. So this is a tool, is an instrument that is still available, and in my opinion, due to my experience, was very powerful to build successful group and to transfer information, knowledge, and improve making the dots, filling the gap together for offering some solution.
Thank you very much. I think that was a very good encounter between you as scientists, trade unions, me as a politician. Thank you very much for your insights, and I hope to keep in touch with you because we are just in an ongoing legislation process, and of course we want to make good decision, as I said at the very beginning. So I'm glad to keep in touch with you, but I will hand over now to Julie, who will wrap up the whole conference.
Thank you very much.